Welcome to Eating Cafe's deep dive into Hexagram 62. In this episode, we take Hexagram 62 and we really unpack how can we interpret this hexagram if you've cast the coins for it, and really unpack the meaningful value of this hexagram. If you would like to jump to a specific part of this episode, have a look at the time codes in the description below or in the chapter headings in this episode, and jump to the section that you'd like to zoom into, specifically if you've got a particular changing line you would like more information on. First up, let's get into the hexagram itself, the tech spec. Okay, we have on the top trigram is thunder. Thunder moves up with vigor and energy. Bottom trigram, all right, the inner trigram, we have mountain, which sinks and rests. Okay. So if this hexagram has its way, what will happen is there's a split. Thunder wants to woomer up, okay, into the heavens, and mountain wants to sink and rest and stay the same to contain the energy. We get the split, right? So what this hexagram also shows is that if we look at the structure of the lines, two yin weak lines at the top, two at the bottom, and then these two strong male lines in the middle. And so these weak lines are not able to contain easily the energy flowing through the center of the trigram, particularly in lines 3 and 4, which are quite challenging spots. They're transitionary spots in the structure of the hexagram. So this hexagram speaks structurally to this idea that in order to avoid a split, an overreach, a separation, and an unraveling of the energy of the time, the small must find a way to temper action and to stay contained and stay low. Okay. So that is a technical aspect of this hexagram. Let's get into what does it all mean. So a little story to help us understand hexagram 62 is the Greek myth of Daedalus, tomato, okay, who tried to rescue his son Icarus from being entrapped in Crete. If you go and read up the story, you'll get the whole background on what this myth was all about. And so what he did was very crafty, and he literally crafted wax wings for Icarus to strap on and to fly out and escape this imprisoned situation. And he said to Icarus, my boy, okay, these are wax wings. Don't fly too high because the sun will melt them and you'll plunge to your death. Yes, Dad, said Icarus. And so he strapped on these wings and he flapped, and out he came of this imprisoned situation. And he was so caught up in the delirious joy of being out of the situation and being able to fly that he went up and up and up and up, not heeding the voice of Daedalus, who said, don't fly too high. Hot sun, wax, you could understand what happened. And so the wax started to melt. Icarus plunged to his death. You know, Greek tragedies are tragedies because they always end in disaster. And this story of the wax wings is a very, very good way of us understanding and working with hexagram 62. Because in the resources, if you read them, you'll see there's a reference to a bird flying low on the horizon, okay? And the way that the bird maximizes the moment, takes the flow into account, is to stay low onto the horizon. To not be Icarus with those wax wings, and to fly too high, too grandiose, too big a picture, too big a vision, and plunge to one's demise. Okay, we stay low to the ground. So when we think about working with this hexagram, we take that story. We can translate that into the idea of two different types of birds. We've got the eagle, okay, that soars high, big picture thinking, broad-minded, okay, can escalate and take those thermals and go right up to the top, versus a little finch, a little wagtail, a little chicken, okay, put in place a little bird that really stays close to the ground, perhaps can't even fly, that picks, and is very grounded, okay. Think about a bird in your environment, in your ecosystem that is like that. I often use this idea of a chicken because it is so relevant in understanding this idea of how you always are seeing a chicken picking, looking between the little stones on the ground, looking for little seeds to eat. So this hexagram, when we get this hexagram in a casting, it's come to greet us, whether it's a question for yourself or someone else, what it's asking us to do is to avoid the tendency, the risk, because there is a risk of being Icarus, okay? Too big, too grandiose, too brash, too bold, too high, okay? And leaving the nest, okay? Leaving ground, all right? We have to be in the situation, the time calls for us to be the chicken, the finch, the wagtail, insert bird, okay? On the ground, picking seed by seed by seed. So that's why this hexagram is called attention to detail, because the value of this moment, how we unlock and deal with the thing, the question that's in front of you that you have asked, is to deal with the details. Put our head down and get one seed at a time. Focus on the details. Get our nose to the ground, okay, and really get connected and grounded to what is really practically actually happening. I would say that the practical matters of life, of your business, of your life situation, of whatever is the situation you've asked about, is where all our attention should be. Not the idea, the potential of the relationship, the potential of the strategy, whatever it is, the unknown, okay, the big, big, bold idea, but what is practically in front of you. That is where the attention must go. So we can ask ourselves a very critical question when we are working with this hexagram, which is, what is the practical detail that if I address with love and care will unlock something for this question that I have asked about? Okay, and you can do it. The process is focusing on what's really in front of you, the practical matters, and getting down to grounding your thinking, being practical, and focusing on the here and now. Not in the big picture, the big idea, the future, the big, bold, grandiose idea. Now, now, now. The reality of now. So let's get into our changing lines. So if you've got changing line in the first position, the reference text says, the bird meets with misfortune through flying. And so we can see that represented in this idea of a bird being in the nest, a fledgling not able to fly yet, okay, but wanting to jump and knowing that this is not going to end well for the bird. So the question remains is, why do we want to leap at a time when we are not ready for it? We don't have the skills yet to make this leap. And doing so will put ourselves at peril. Think about questions like, why would you do that? Okay, why would you want to do that in this situation and put yourself at risk when you're not ready? Is it to get favor? Is it to boast or to brag or to be, bigger than the situation is? Okay, maybe you don't feel as confident in your skills, and accept the reality of where you're at. It's okay that you can't yet fly in this situation, and rather stay grounded in the nest until you are ready. This is all about timing. And then in the second position, the text says she passes by her ancestor and meets her ancestress. He does not reach his prince and meets the official. No blame. So in this situation, you would normally, in line of command, go to the ancestor, the male, not the ancestress, the female, okay? You would go to higher ups, all right? The prince, you wouldn't go to the official. And so it talks about where might there be someone in a secondary position who has useful information to help you in this process of flying under the radar, flying low, and being that chicken close to the ground. There's something around the detail where someone who's in a secondary position can help you. So look around you as you work with interpreting this line. Who might be the person you wouldn't think of first that actually has the power, has the information, has the resources that you need? Great example of this, if you want something done, don't try and get the CEO to do it. Ask the secretary or the personal assistant of the CEO, because they are actually the most powerful person in the executive team. It's that kind of idea of looking for the secondary position, looking for the ancestress rather than the ancestor. Make sense? In the third position, the text says, if one is not extremely careful, somebody may come up from behind him and strike him. Misfortune. And so here we have another warning. This transition point, line 3, tricky, right? Here, if we have not been extremely cautious, okay, if we have been Icarus-like in our approach, we face dealing with the consequences of the risks we haven't paid attention to. So ask yourself the question, what are the risks that I could activate by continuing to push? Have I been extremely careful? Have I stayed close to the ground? Where am I overreaching? And how can I pull that back just for now in order to minimize the risk of the sun melting my wax wings? Okay, this is a tricky one. It is a transition point. We run the risk of not learning the lesson of Icarus right here and now. Then in the fourth place, the text says, no blame. He meets him without passing by. Going brings danger. One must be on guard. Do not act. Be constantly persevering. And so here we have a transition to line 4. Okay, great. We've got over that little chasm in the middle. We're warned again, okay, we do not need to chase after what we want. We don't have to take initiative in this moment. We can get what we want by not trying to pass it by to try and achieve it. Okay, going on. Okay, going on means going on to achieve or try to get what we want will bring the challenge. What we have to do is stay put, do not act, be on guard, and just hang in, because what we are wanting to achieve is coming. There can be success in the situation, but if we push an agenda and we try and overreach, as with this whole hexagram, the message it conveys, trouble. Okay, we will get what we need, but not by pushing forward right now. In the 5th position, the text says, dense clouds, no rain from our western territory. The prince shoots and hits him who is in the cave. And so this line refers to these dense clouds. Like in many of the hexagrams, these dense clouds represent rain that is on its way, not yet here. Okay, and here we can see the clouds. The dense clouds are moving away. The rain is not yet here. Perhaps we feel a little bit isolated and alone. The thing that we want over there in the clouds is not yet here. And we notice that in the cave is someone who has retired or retreated. Okay, and the prince shoots his arrow, shoots his direction, his focus, and hits the target, hits the person hiding in the cave. Okay, we are not going to shoot anybody, okay, with arrows. Okay, what this represents is that the person that you need, the thing that you need, okay, to reconnect you, to move forward, is hiding out in the cave, has retreated or withdrawn. Okay, I often see this as looking for people who are leaving a situation as being resources of connections and opportunities and information. People who are retired, perhaps people who are consultants now but are retired officially in the field that you're in, are useful to reach out to. And it's like picking up the phone and phoning that old connection who's perhaps got in retirement or has changed their career doing something else, and giving them a call and asking them for information or for insight or for some mentoring on the issue that you're dealing with. So it recognizes 2 things. One is that there's this kind of waiting period energy of the dense clouds holding the rain, plus the thing that we are looking for can be moved forward if we look to who's in the cave, who's retired, and go and draw out that information. You know, when we read these I Ching books, they can be very, very complex. When you see these little poems, these little quotes, like, what on earth does this mean? But they really, if you work with it over time, they really start to unpack and make some sense. And then right at the top, the last line, it says, he passes him by and not meeting him. The flying bird leaves him misfortune. This means bad luck and injury. And here we have reached the zenith of this changing line, right in the 6th position. We are culminating the warning of this hexagram. If you haven't paid attention and you haven't brought things to a halt where they needed to stop, and you aren't staying close to the ground like the small little bird, the chicken, and you're on an Icarus path, calamity awaits you. You have missed the point. You have missed the opportunity. I like to think with all these changing lines, there's always a chance to pull back. Like if you're asking a question and this comes up, you have the opportunity to look at that line and say, there's something in my nature that is refusing to pull back, is refusing to lie low and keep things simple right now. And if I do this, I understand the consequences of my actions. So it's always an opportunity to pull back and to not fall into the trap that's being highlighted by the hexagram. It's not fate, it's guidance of how to walk a higher path in each situation. This line says, if we don't pay attention, if the bird does not listen, goes higher and higher and higher and higher, it will be caught in the hunter's net and be taken out. Okay, the wings will melt and Icarus will meet his fate. Let's not be him. So in summary, this hexagram puts our attention, our focus in our question on the area where we are needing to stay close to the ground, to get stuck into the details, the practical reality of what's here and now, to pull back from the urge of overreaching, okay, of being Icarus, racing off to the sun in our wax wings, okay, flying high with delirious excitement, does not end well, to find ways of tempering the ego, pulling back, getting stuck into what is really in front of us rather than the ideas and the potential and future things that are not yet here. The here and now is the way that we unlock this hexagram in relation to our question. Thank you so much. I hope that you found working through this hexagram in this way for your question to be highly valuable. If it was so, please hit the like button or share it. And if you would like to know more about the I Ching Cafe and the resources available, go to the link in the description below to go find out what's available to you. And of course, please subscribe so that you get the weekly and monthly episodes that I do straight into your app as they land on a weekly and monthly basis. Thank you so much for joining me. Take care.